A Brief History of Computer, a brief and concise reminder of the computer history. In 1949, John von Neumann worked as an observer in ENIAC project and stated that the panel plug system was incapable of working on the computer. In order to do business at ENIAC, operations on data stored in memory were reported to the machine by the operators in turn. This notification was based on the proper closing of the circuits with the help of plugs placed in various cells on the machine's panel. The idea of memory resident program was then developed by itself. The first computer design based on this principle is EVAC, Electronic Discrete Variable Automatic Calculator. However, this design did not succeed until 1952. By the beginning of the 1950s, mass production of computers accelerated. Eckert and Malchley Eckert and Malchley Computer Corporation, which designs ENIAC, have established a company to produce commercial computers. IBM followed this. These two companies, which are organized to produce computers for the market, started to work with computers with lamps. After ENIAC, the first computer with similar principles was UNIVAC-1, Universal Automatic Computer. UNIVAC-1, built by designers of ENIAC, was completed in 1951 and sold to the U.S. Census Bureau. It was produced and sold 3 in 1952 and 1953, 7 in 1954 and 1955, 15 in 1956 and 1 in 1958. As you can see from this, UNIVAC-1 is the first commercially produced computer. Also sold to General Electric in 1954, UNIVAC was the first computer to enter the business world. In 1951, the first real-time computer, Whirlwind, was developed. With the development of commercial computers, the computer has become the new sector. The manpower to work in the sector has started to be trained, and the manuals related to computers have started to be published. In 1952, Fred Rubenberg wrote a handbook on the first computer. Again in 1952, IBM started to produce the first electronic programmed computer, IBM 701. In 1954, the Fortran Formula Translation Programming Language was developed by John Backus. In 1954, silicon integrated circuits were used instead of vacuum tubes in computer production. 1959, COBOL Common Business Oriented Language was developed. In 1960, for the first time, portable floppy disks began to be used. The ASIC Beginner's All-Purpose Symbolic Instruction Language was developed in 1964. In 1969, Ken Thompson invented the Bell Labs Hacker Unix. Thompson was involved in the development of a time-sharing operating system called Multics, with the same origins as its. The complexity of the Multics operating system from the users, and there has even been a platform where some important ideas about how to hide it from most programmers. The focus of the studies is to use Multics and write a program. Further simplification of the process and increasing efficiency through this way. As Multics grew more and more, Bell Labs stopped the project. The system was then commercially marketed by Honeywell but failed. Ken Thompson, with some ideas of the multimedia environment he longed for, began experimenting with his own ideas on an old December PDP-7. Pascal programming language was developed in 1969. In 1969, Honeywell produced a computer called H316, which could be used in homes and offices for the first time. In 1969, IBM launched the world's first personal computer development. This computer is named SCAMP. In 1970, many computer companies launched their own systems. In addition, different software and hardware manufacturers have introduced their own developed RAM, printer and microprocessors. In 1971, Intel developed the first microprocessor, Intel 4004. In 1971, John Blank Bokacki developed GenBak 1, the first personal computer PC. In 1971, the first microprocessor with 15,000 transistors was developed by Texas Instruments. C programming language was developed in 1972. In 1972, for the first time at UCLA University, computer-to-computer communication was carried out. In 1973, Bob Metcalfe from Xerox developed the Ethernet system for the first time. In 1974, Intel developed the Intel 8080, the most widely used personal computer ever. In 1975, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak began their first personal computer design in the garage of their home and made Apple I working with BASIC and CT/M operating systems. Bill Gates founded Microsoft in 1975. In 1975, the first computer store was opened in Santa Monica, California. In 1975, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak developed Apple II. Apple Computer was installed in 1977. Apple Macintosh. In 1978, computer usage in the United States increased to 500,000. In 1979, VisiCalc developed software to be used for mathematical operations. WordStar is the word processing program most commonly used by PCs in 1979. In 1980, Microsoft released its own Xenix operating system by acquiring the license of the Unix operating system. In 1980, the number of computers used in the United States rose to 1 million. In 1981, Commodore produced VIC-20 home and office computers, which sold more than 1 million. In 1981, Adam Osborne developed his first portable computer. The company, named after Osborne, which gained significant commercial success with the first portable computer that weighed 11 pounds on the market in 1981, was bankrupt 2 years after its extreme and undisciplined growth. Osborne's portable sewing machine, which sold more than 10,000 pieces a month in 1982, was greatly appreciated at the time. In 1986, the use of computers in the United States reached 30 million. In 1987, Texas Instruments produced the first artificial intelligence microchip. In 1989, the number of computers used in the world exceeded 100 million. In 1989, Poke introduced its first mobile computer with MS-DOS. In 1989, notebook computers with all the features that a computer needs to carry and battery-powered were released. The first Internet application was launched in 1991. In 1991, 486 ESX computers were released by Intel. In 1991, Bell Laboratories began to provide online information services. In 1991, a Helsinki University student named Linus Torvalds began to develop the free Unix kernel working on 386 machines using the tools of Free Software Foundation. Many Internet hackers have helped develop Linux, the free and redistributable Unix with full functionality and full source code. PDA personnel digital assistant type computers started to be produced in 1992-3. 1993 Intel Pentium processors began to produce. The first is 586 MHz, determined to be. In 1994, the first official version of Linux was Linux 1.0, but it only had support for single processor 386. NES consisted of 30 main parts. The total weight was 30 tons and it was 167 meters too. The dimensions were about 2.4 meters x 0.9 meters x 30 meters 150-200 kilowatts electric power and quite strong cooling equipment needed. It included 17.468 vacuum tube, 1500 relays, 7200 crystal diode, 70,000 resistances, 10,000 capacitors and about 5 million manual soldered connections. The computational capacity was able to separate the image of a number, compare equations, multiply, divide, collect, extract, and calculate square roots. NES accumulators pre-recording zones were both collection and memory functions. The data was supplied to ENIAC via an IBM card reader. Processed data was also obtained through an IBM punched card machine, which was then decrypted by a perforated card reader, probably IBM 405 produced by IBM. In those days, it was necessary to work for about 20 hours to calculate the root of a ball that took 60 seconds. NES has reduced this calculation time to 15 seconds. The collection process it can do in 1 second was 5,000 units per accumulator, 100,000 units in total. Multiplication can be done in 6×385. Dividing or taking square root process 38 number. He was able to store only 200 digits in his temporary memory,